Hi everyone, today let's talk about inflation, then we'll get into all the data and the charts. Do me a quick favor and like and subscribe and watch the video till the end to help out the channel, and let's get started. So inflation reports are coming out this week and we already got PPI this morning, and that was a positive result. Markets liked the PPI report this morning, and we did get a strong push up over 2% on the day in the NASDAQ, almost 2% in the SPY, and now tomorrow we have CPI coming out. I don't know if the response will be as strong if we do get a report in line with the PPI report, but if inflation comes in hot, that's definitely going to be a detriment for markets. So CPI data tomorrow, absolutely important. This is the last inflation report before that September meeting, and that is absolutely going to impact markets a lot if we do not get that rate cut. Markets have priced it in heavily, and like I mentioned, PPI, that confirms the optimism, and markets really like it. But it is worth mentioning that the expectation is 3.2%, which is still pretty far away from that Fed target of 2%. And of course, the big fear is that 4.3% unemployment rate, which did trigger the SAM rule, which signals with almost 100% accuracy that we are headed towards a recession. So fear and greed index stepped up to a 25, pretty small move considering the move that we saw in markets from a 23 to a 25. It is trending up slowly, but we are still in that extreme fear category. And you can see that move here on momentum, still in fear, but definitely showing some strength. And then looking at strength, still trending lower. Breadth did tick up a little bit here. And then put call ratio continues to trend lower. Markets regaining a little bit of bullishness. And then volatility also continuing to crater through that area of resistance. You can see it here, the peaks back from mid-April. And then you can see safe haven demand and junk bond demand continuing to hover in extreme fear as yields continue to go lower on the back of this PPI data. Moving over to seasonality here, looking at the calendar, we do get a ton of data on Thursday, of course CPI tomorrow, and then that Thursday and Friday are generally bullish. We'll see how that plays. And then don't forget, this is a third week options expiration, and we do get that Michigan consumer sentiment on Friday. Moving over to the economic calendar here, you can see PPI coming in at a 0, much lower than expectations, and then the month over month number 0.1 versus 0.2. Previous number was also revised down from 0.4 to 0.3, so very good number on the PPI. That's why markets liked it so much. If CPI comes in line with the PPI report and we do beat, that would also be very bullish. You can see some of these numbers are expected to step up slightly. So the core month over month from 0.1 to 0.2, like to see that stay at least flat. And then the headline month over month number from minus 0.1 all the way up to 0.2. So hopefully these are more in line with PPI and they come in below expectations. Otherwise, we need to at least meet to maintain the gains that we saw today, in my opinion. And then don't forget, for Thursday, you have core and headline retail sales coming out at 8:30, and then a bunch of manufacturing data coming out at 8:30 as well. So a bunch of data tomorrow, as well as Thursday, to push around markets. Moving over to Max Pain here, you can see Max Pain still at 535. Stock price jumped well above that now at 541.57. We talked about this being an interesting zone between 540 and 550. That would be the top of markets based on this chart, in my opinion. And then looking at the options, 3.1 million getting up there. It's not the highest we've seen, but it's definitely a big number. And then put call ratio continues to grow here, puts all the way up at 3.15. So wouldn't expect a huge move down based on the total amount of puts in the market now. Moving over to the charts, starting off with the S&Ps, you can see we did get a really strong rally, 1.64%. PPI came out and it was basically straight up all day, broke through that 540 level, broke the trend. Next one would be 544. Momentum bullish, definitely overbought here in the short term, but we did get that economic data to push us, so we'll see how it plays. And then looking at that daily chart here, you can see we got into the zone that we talked about. So the 21 EMA was there at 541.27, broke through that pretty cleanly. And now you have the 55 EMA sitting there at 542.22. So right there, interesting zone, stopped right at it, falling just a little bit after hours. If we get a nice CPI read, you could absolutely see this push right through that zone, through 544, maybe all the way up to the 550 area. But like we talked about on Max Pain, that's probably going to be the top of markets, at least for this week. Momentum continues to look very good. RSI continues to look quite good to the upside. And then looking at the Tasty charts here, you can see we did hit that upper ATR band. We did take out the ATR stops as well. So we're back into bullish conditions on the 4-hour chart. That ATR resistance is 540. 142.13, and that is basically the high of day. We touched that level, pulled back a little bit from it. Momentum, not a whole lot. Volume did step up a little bit here today, nothing crazy. And then looking at that hourly chart here, you can see we did get a huge volume spike on the last candle of the day, and then we got a little bit of selling action afterwards. We'll see how that plays. Typically, you do not want to see that right at the end of a really powerful up push. You want to see that kind of build here and then rally through. So something to consider. Maybe this is a short-term top. And then looking at the NASDAQ here, you can see a similar thesis, really strong push on that PPI data. Hit this trend line here and then grinded along it just a little bit. Momentum still bullish, RSI super overbought. Again, potentially indicating a short-term top, something to consider there. Really strong push though, 2.48% on the day. If this level breaks, there's a lot of room through here. We did get that gap fill, filled all these levels to here all the way back to that Thursday candle. And then looking at the daily chart a little bit closer, you can see hit the VWAP, hit 21 EMA, not quite at that 55 EMA yet. That's all the way up at 470.97. Not sure we're going to get there unless we get a really soft CPI data, but this is a critical zone. This is still a downtrend. If it's going to reject, it's going to do it soon off of this area. Momentum says that we should be able to push through it. RSI still looks good, but we are right at that 50 line. So if we do get a rejection, typically that's where it's going to happen, at the 50 line on the down move, which, like I mentioned, this is still a downtrend. Moving over to the Tasty charts here, you can see that upper ATR band, we did just barely miss it on the NASDAQ. That was at 463.91, but you can see that 144 EMA acting as resistance here. That is at 463.01. Touched that level, rejected a little bit from it. This is still a downtrend. This is the same zone that we got into last time before we saw that really powerful down move. So rallied aggressively, touched that zone. We'll see if it follows through to the downside tomorrow or not. And it's also worth mentioning we're back into bullish conditions. You can see that rally through over the last 2 days, but this is still a critical zone like I mentioned. And then similarly here on the hourly chart, you can see we are way above that upper ATR. So a little bit extended, still bullish conditions. And then again, volume spike on that last candle of the day. And then we saw a little bit of sideways choppy and selling. So we'll see how it plays. Could be a short-term top. Definitely extended on the short time frames. Moving over to the Russell and the Dow, both of these did well on the day, 1.65 and 1.02 on the day. You can see the Russell pushed that 208.22 level, wicked that level, and then pulled back slightly. Not a whole lot. It's down at 207.70, but broke this level here, broke the 55 EMA back above the 9. If this follows through as you would expect it to, that gives it a ton of room up to that 21 EMA. Still have a level here at 212.10 if 208 breaks. Momentum still good there. RSI not quite to the SMA yet, so we're still kind of mixed on conditions. Bullish momentum, slightly bearish RSI. And then looking at the Dow, still headed towards that price target, which was 398.76. Probably going to touch that tomorrow. Potentially push to that 21 EMA all the way up at 400.5. Critical zone there, VWAPs right there as well. Moving over to the Mag 7, strong day here as well, 2.61, pretty much moves in line with the NASDAQ. Pushed right through that 21, pushed very close to the 55, which is at 261.81. Based on this kind of move here, if that 55 breaks, we're headed to 265.08. And then if that level breaks, then we're potentially pushing all the way up to that 271.50 area, right at this trend line. We'll see how it plays. Last move was a big breakdown, retest, breakdown, and now we're getting close to testing that zone one more time. Momentum and RSI still very bullish, and you can see RSI is above the 50 line at 51.73, so that's a pretty good indicator as well. So far, everything continues to look bullish. Moving over to stocks that moved today, we got StarBucks jumping massively, 25.5% on the day, all the way up to 95 from a 77. And then you got Chipotle on the inverse, falling 7.5%. And at one point, it was much worse than that. You can see the low of day was all the way down around 14% lower, testing this low back from Monday on that big down move day. And this is the story of a CEO moving over from Chipotle over to Starbucks. Apparently, this guy is amazing, and everyone thinks he's going to save the Starbucks brand. This is not an underdeveloped company in Starbucks. Obviously, it's well established, and people think adding him to the C-suite is going to justify a stock that is worth 25% more. Seems a little bit optimistic, but who knows, maybe he's truly the savior, and Chipotle Mexican Grill is going to crater from here. Moving over to Apple and Microsoft, Apple pushed right to the trend line, right where we thought it was going to. We said 217.61 was the level. If that broke, the trend line was here. Finished basically right on top of it. So again, another stock at a critical point. Momentum still very bullish. RSI still very bullish. So could push right through there on that CPI news tomorrow. And then looking at Microsoft, they got a strong move as well, 1.77%, pushing to that 21 EMA up at 421.30. I wasn't sure we were going to be able to hold these gains, but we've since broken 413.36, and now as long as that holds, we should be pushing up to that 420.50 or the 421 area. Moving over to Tesla and NVIDIA, you can see Tesla finding a very strong move, 5.24%. Coming off of this consolidation, momentum swinging to bullish, RSI looks very bullish. 21 EMA, if we get the same move as everyone else pushing up, would give you a price target of 221.63, but you do have resistance in here, 55 at 208.45, and then my level here at 214. And then if both of those break, 221.63 is the level. But this momentum chart looks very good. RSI chart looks very good. And then looking at NVIDIA, strong move there as well. Back into bullish momentum. RSI very bullish. 6.53%. Moved right to the trend line. We're waiting to see if that breaks. Above that, you got the 55 EMA at 119.26, and then above that, my level at 125.17. Moving over to Meta and Amazon, Meta did exactly what we thought it was going to, broke that 520.31 level. It's pushing up to these previous highs, up around 544. Same thesis, momentum bullish, RSI bullish, everything continues to look good there. And then looking at Amazon, up 2%, held the level at 167.06, pushed above the 200 just barely at 169.86. Now your next level to the upside, if these levels here hold, would be 174.23. Momentum swinging to bullish, RSI swinging to bullish. So seems like an opportunity really across markets here, at least for the next couple days. Moving over to staples and discretionary, got a bit of an everything rally here. Staples up 0.46, discretionary is 2.51%, momentum swinging back to bullish, RSI crossing back above the SMA there. So everything looks bullish. Price target would be 180.10 if we can get there. And then above that, the 21 EMA sitting at 181.80. Moving over to oil and gas and transports, still like both of these here. So you can see oil and gas did pull back a little bit, but 135.07 is the level. As long as that is intact, this is still a bullish thesis up to that 140.88 level. Momentum still bullish, RSI still bullish. A little bit of volume there, which is not great, especially with the gap up, gap down. So something to watch, still looks okay. And then looking at transports, very strong day here, 1.17%, gapped up and rallied, 55 EMAs there at 64.53. And then above that, my level 64.89. So probably about 70 cents or so of upside into that next area of resistance. Moving over to RIOT and Marathon, I've kind of been ignoring these here because they've just been downtrending through the floor, but it seems like they might have found a little bit of a base here today. So the low for RIOT was right around 750, which was below this previous low from April. So once this area here broke, then we got that bigger move down. And it certainly hasn't recovered the same way the rest of markets have. So still doesn't look super great, but this is a zone where it could find some support. And if we get a push, that would give you about another $1 of upside into this trend area and that area of resistance there. So it doesn't look as bad as it has over the past couple days. And then similarly here, let's go ahead and extend out this trend line. Makes sense. We're right in that same exact zone. Again, still looks terrible. Still very much a downtrend, but maybe we see a little bit of a recovery if this zone here can hold, push back up to that area of resistance around 1878. Momentum on both of these starting to swing back to bullish, but RSI not quite there yet. Moving over to 20 and 50-day breadth, both of these were very bullish on the day, surprisingly so. 20-day breadth, I thought we might see at least a retest of that 3660 level. Didn't quite happen, opened flat and then rallied all day, pushing close to that 5175 level. This is a zone of resistance, but momentum looks good, RSI crossing above the SMA, so this looks more bullish here today than it did yesterday. And then similarly here on 50-day breadth, momentum, RSI, both the same, pushing above the 144, probably headed to 62.25. Moving over to the dollar cratered obviously on that PPI data. Weak inflation data is going to push the dollar lower because that means interest rates are going to go lower. So momentum bearish, RSI bearish. We eclipsed this previous low on a closing basis. If this continues lower here on CPI, we're probably headed down to that 102 area. Moving over to bonds. Bonds rallied today as you would expect. Weak inflation data pushes yields down and pushes bonds up. Momentum on both of these continues to swing back to bullish. RSI crossing above the SMA there on J and K. Looks like this is going to push back to the 95.61 level, potentially back up to these previous highs here. Looks very strong, pushed right through these other levels. And then looking at TLT, same thesis, gapped up, held the level, held those gains. We'll see if it can get a continuation here on CPI. The doji is a little bit concerning, but it's not super unusual for bonds. Also would have liked to see a little bit more volume here. Maybe people are waiting for that CPI. So see how it plays. Still very much a bullish structure in my opinion. Moving over to the VIX, pushed right through this zone that we were watching here today. So closed below it, probably headed down to that 55 EMA, down in the 1530 area, potentially 1470. As long as CPI comes in okay, this is going to continue to go lower back into this previous zone. Structurally, this is broken now, so everything looks a little bit bullish. Moving over to my accounts, I made a little bit of money, not nearly as much money as I should have. I rolled up early in the session, but I was a little bit hesitant. I wasn't sure if we were going to be able to hold those gains just on some simple PPI data. It was very bullish, but I wasn't positive. But markets continued up all day, so I did roll out here. So looking at the IWM up to 205 for $2.87 credit. So that's already at max profit for tomorrow. Probably should have rolled that again to 2 days from now. If CPI comes in anywhere near PPI, we're probably going to get another very strong push. And then similarly here on the Qs, rolled out 2 days to 456 for $8 credit. So that gives me a potential profit up to 464. Again, if we get very powerful PPI data, I'll probably roll this out once again and then be patient after that. Inflation data has been a very strong catalyst, but after that, we don't have anywhere near the same potential for a catalyst push. So be patient after tomorrow's data. As long as it comes in good, we should see a nice bullish push. And you can see I am bullish going into tomorrow's session. Probably should have been a little bit more bullish, but we'll see how it plays out with the CPI tomorrow. Let me know down in the comments section what you thought of the inflation data today and what you think we're going to get tomorrow. Are markets going to continue to rocket up, or is this zone of resistance going to hold, at least in the short term? Definitely like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video, and make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.